Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a topic that has intrigued scholars, theologians, and curious minds for centuries. The major questions the Bible seems to leave unanswered. Now, this isn't about challenging faith, but rather exploring the fascinating depths and mysteries within these ancient texts. The Bible is a vast and complex collection of books, and part of its enduring power is that it invites us to ponder, question, and seek deeper understanding. So, grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's explore some of these profound biblical puzzles together. First up, a question that has probably crossed many people's minds. Where did Cain's wife come from? The book of Genesis tells us about Adam and Eve and their sons, Cain and Abel. After Cain famously quarrels with Abel, he's banished to the land of Nod. The text then casually mentions that Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. But wait a minute, who was she? If Adam, Eve, and their sons were the only people on earth, where did this other woman come from? Some scholars suggest she was one of Cain's own sisters, or nieces, as Genesis later mentions Adam and Eve had other sons and daughters. This would have been necessary in the very earliest stages of humanity to populate the earth, though it raises its own set of questions. Others propose that there were other tribes, or groups of people created alongside Adam and Eve, who are just not the focus of the Genesis narrative. The Bible doesn't give a clear answer, leaving it a classic biblical mystery. Let's move on to the giants. Yes, you heard that right, giants. Genesis chapter 6 speaks of the Nephilim, who were on the earth in those days when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. The text calls them the heroes of old, men of renown. This single passage has sparked endless debate. Who were these sons of God? Were they fallen angels, as some ancient interpretations suggest? Or were they simply powerful human rulers or descendants of Seth's righteous lineage? And what became of the Nephilim? While they're mentioned again after the flood, like when the Israelite spies are terrified by the giant inhabitants of Canaan, their ultimate origin and fate remain shrouded in mystery. It's a tantalizing glimpse into a pre-flood world that sounds like something straight out of a fantasy epic, yet it's right there in the opening pages of the Bible. Next, let's talk about something called the lost years of Jesus. The Gospels give us a detailed account of Jesus' birth and a brief story of him at age 12, teaching the elders in the temple. Then, silence. He reappears in the narrative around the age of 30 to begin his public ministry. That's an 18-year gap. What was he doing all that time? Was he in Nazareth, working as a carpenter, as is commonly assumed? Did he travel? Some non-biblical traditions and theories suggest he journeyed to places like India, Britain, or Egypt to study with other spiritual masters. While there's no historical evidence to support these claims, it highlights a massive, unanswered question in the life of one of history's most influential figures. The biblical authors clearly didn't feel this period was essential to their message. But for us, the curiosity is immense. What did he learn? How did he prepare for his mission? We are simply left to wonder. Another fascinating puzzle is the fate of the Ark of the Covenant. This sacred, gold-plated chest, built to hold the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments, was the most sacred object for the ancient Israelites. It was the physical manifestation of God's presence among His people. It is described in great detail in the book of Exodus and plays a key role throughout the Old Testament, but then it vanishes from the biblical record. The last historical mention is during the reign of King Josiah, before the Babylonian invasion of Jerusalem in 586 BC. When the Babylonians sacked the city and destroyed Solomon's temple, what happened to the ark? Was it captured and later destroyed? Was it hidden away by the priests beforehand? There are countless theories. Ethiopian tradition claims it was taken to Aksum and resides there to this day. Other legends say it's hidden beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, or was carried away by the prophet Jeremiah to a secret cave. The Bible offers no definitive answer, making the Ark of the Covenant one of history's greatest lost treasures. Let's shift from objects to the afterlife. While the New Testament speaks clearly about heaven and hell, the Old Testament's view is much murkier. The primary concept of the afterlife seems to be a place called Sheol. But what exactly was Sheol? It's often translated as the grave or the pit, and it's described as a shadowy, silent place where all the dead, both righteous and wicked, go. It doesn't sound like a place of punishment or reward, but more of a neutral, quiet existence, a pale reflection of life on earth. How did this concept of Sheol evolve into the more defined ideas of heaven and hell we see later? Was it a gradual theological development? The Old Testament focuses so heavily on life in this world, on obeying God's laws and living fruitfully on the land He provided, that the specifics of the next life are largely left to our imagination. Here's a big one. What did Jesus look like? For billions of people, the image of Jesus is a very specific one, often a man with long light brown hair, a beard, and fair skin. But this image is a product of European art history, developed centuries after his life. The Bible gives us zero physical description of him, not a single word about his hair color, eye color, height, or build. In fact, the prophet Isaiah, in a passage many Christians believe refers to the Messiah, says, "He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him." This suggests he might have been remarkably ordinary, someone who could easily blend into a crowd. As a Jewish man from Galilee in the 1st century, he would have most likely had features typical of people from that region: darker skin, dark hair, and dark eyes. The fact that the Bible omits any physical description might be intentional, encouraging us to focus on his teachings and character rather than his outward appearance. Finally, what happened to the 12 apostles? The New Testament gives us a lot of information about a few of them, like Peter, John, and, of course, Judas. We know James, the brother of John, was the first apostle to be martyred. But for many of the others, Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Thomas, Matthew, James son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, and Simon the Zealot, their stories end abruptly after the book of Acts begins. Where did they go? What did they do? Church tradition and historical accounts from writers like Eusebius provide some clues, suggesting they traveled to the far corners of the known world, India, Ethiopia, Scythia, Armenia, to spread the Christian message, and that most of them met violent ends. But these are traditions, not biblical accounts. The Bible itself is strangely silent on the ultimate fate of the majority of the men Jesus personally chose to carry his message to the world. So, from Cain's wife to the lost ark, from the Nephilim to the silent years of Jesus, the Bible is filled with tantalizing gaps and enduring mysteries. And you know what? That's part of what makes it such a living, breathing document. It's not a simple instruction manual with every answer neatly provided. It's a library of stories, poetry, history, and prophecy that invites us into a lifelong journey of discovery. These unanswered questions don't have to be seen as flaws. They can be seen as invitations to dig deeper, to study history, to discuss with others, and to strengthen our own understanding. What are some biblical mysteries that you've always wondered about? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to read them and maybe even cover them in a future video. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this exploration, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content just like this. We'll see you in the next one.